So today we are going to be looking at tissues and organs. So previously we have looked at cells, specialized cells, and the functions of various specialized cells. You should be familiar with plant cells and animal cells. Now, for this particular topic of tissues and organs, we are going to focus on animal cells. Now, building on our knowledge of specialized cells, we're going to look at the next layer up. Now, when we talk about tissues and organs, we are talking about levels of organization. So within living organisms, there are certain levels of organization that you need to be familiar with. So we have already looked at cells. So we can say that cells, if we were just to recap, cells are the basic building blocks. Cells are the basic building blocks of life. So this is the standard definition that you've come across a number of times. Building blocks of all living organisms. The next level of organization above cells are the tissues. Now the tissues are much larger in comparison to individual units of cells because by definition a tissue is made up of a number of cells. But we have to be precise in how we explain the nature of these cells. So we define tissues as a group of cells with similar structure, and function, working together. Now, this is important because this sentence has a number of key words which you need to make sure that you are comfortable with. The first thing is that the tissues are a group of cells. So there are a number of cells working together here. Now, the first key point here is that it is the word similar. The cells have to be similar in structure. And secondly, they have a similar function. Now, when we were looking at the cells topic, we were looking at various types of cells. We have looked at, for example, palisade cells. We have looked at spongy mesophyll cells. We have looked at red blood cells. We have looked at white blood cells. We have looked at the nerve cell. And from your notes, you should be familiar with that these are various types of cells and they have differing structures and differing corresponding functions. Now, a tissue is a group of any one of these cells, i.e., let's say a nerve cell, or let's say a root hair cell from a plant, a group of any one of these cells which are working together, we classify that as being a tissue. So a specific type of cell, we can say a specialized cell, grouping a number of these together, working together is a tissue. Now I want you to pause the video here and I want you to jot down 2 types of tissues that you are aware of in the human body. All right, so I'm going to give you 2 types of tissues here. So let's see if you are able to match the ones here. So I'm going to give you one type, muscular tissue. So you've got a muscular tissue here. So the muscle cells. Okay, these work by contraction and relaxation. Another type, let's say a glandular. Glandular tissue. Now, glandular tissue, these secrete enzymes and possibly hormones. So you have this type of tissue, and you can see it's different by its function, or let's say how it works, to a muscular tissue. Muscular tissues, as I said, are involved in contraction and relaxation. And then you've got glandular tissues, another type of function where they secrete possibly hormones and enzymes. All right, moving on now to organs. So we've looked at cells, we've looked at tissues. Now we're going to move on to organs. So if you could just put organs on your piece of paper. Now we have to define the organ or organs. So organs, we say, are a collection of tissues or a grouping of tissues. So let's say organs are collection of tissues. So you can see straight away now that the order of size has increased now. If we compare organs to tissues to cells, we can see that we are increasing in size as we go up in the organization layer. Cells being very small, next layer above would be your tissues, then would be your organs. And organs we describe as being a collection of tissues. Now I want to put something further here. So organs are a collection of tissues, and we can say that each organ may contain several tissues. Each organ may contain several tissues. And further, the last point I want you to write is that all tissues work together to perform a specific function. 3 types of tissues: muscular tissue, glandular tissue, and epithelial tissue. Now, I'm going to give you one particular organ that I want you to focus on, the stomach. And using these 3 types of tissues that are found within the stomach, so you find all 3 types of tissues in the stomach, A, B, and C. I want you to pause the video and I want you to just jot down a possible function of each type of tissue mentioned here. So I'll repeat again. These three types of tissues, muscular tissue, glandular tissue, and epithelial tissue, are found within the stomach being the organ. So these three groups of tissues will make up a stomach, the organ, the stomach. Now what I want you to do is pause the video and jot down, just bullet point on your piece of paper under A, B, and C, the function of each type of tissue. Okay, so the muscular tissue found within the stomach, this will churn the food. So it churns the food and digestive juices. So in A, we use the muscular tissue to churn the food and digestive juices, and with that we break down the food. So for the glandular tissue, you should have, it produces digestive juices. Produces digestive juices. Now, the reason for producing the digestive juices is to ensure the breakdown of the food that has been consumed. So here you've got the glandular tissue and the muscular tissues working together. So the digestive juices that are secreted by the glandular tissues are churned by the muscular tissues, are churned alongside the food by the muscular tissues. Now, the epithelial cells, this one might have been a bit difficult. The epithelial cells, these are the lining inside and outside of the stomach. So epithelial tissue, these are the tissues that line the inside and the outside of the stomach. Now, just a point about the epithelial tissues. Epithelial, so if you forget, if you find it difficult to understand what epithelial means, epithelial generally refers to something being the outermost part of a structure, either the surface part of a structure. Okay, now we move on to organ system or organ systems. I want you to define, based on how we've defined tissues and organs, I want you to define an organ system. And once you've defined it, I want you to give me one example. Maybe build on the examples we've already looked at. So I'll repeat again. The next layer up after organs is organ systems. And I want you, based on the pattern we have been following so far regarding building from cells, tissues and organs, I would like you to give me the definition or define organ systems. Once you've defined organ systems, I want you to give me an example of a system within the body. Again, it might be helpful to build on the examples that we've already looked at. Okay, so you should have a definition that looks something like this. Organ systems are groups of organs that all work together. Okay, so now we are grouping a number of organs together and we get a system or an organ system. Now, a simple example based on what we've looked at so far is the digestive system. You can have the respiratory system, you can have the nervous system. So these are other types of systems, and we will be looking at those systems in a bit more detail, but you may have noticed I'm focusing on the digestive system in a lot of detail right now because as subsequent subtopics we will have to take apart the digestive system and talk about each layer, i.e. the specialized cells, the specialized tissues and the specific specialized organs. So again, just to summarize, the organ system is a group of organs working together, which all work together. Now, I'm going to finish off the last part where we have, I'm just going to write down organism. Organism, this is many systems working together. Many systems working together. Now, we have to be careful here. Although I have said an organism is, by this sentence here, is defined as where we have many systems working together, i.e. we've come from the cellular structures all the way to the organ systems. Now, you must at the same time be aware that you can have living organisms that are unicellular, i.e. made up of one cell only. The layer of organization that we have looked at today are specific to multicellular organisms. So that is how we can go from cells to tissues to organs to organ systems, then to the organism level. So this is relevant to multicellular organisms. You must also at the same time remember that there are unicellular organisms, organisms that are made up of one cell only, single cell living organisms, such as bacteria. Here you have some diagrams representing the cellular structure, the tissue, an organ, and an organ system. So you can see how one leads on to the other. I want you to focus your attention at the organ system level. And I want you to, on your piece of paper, jot down as many organs as you can find at the organ system level according to this diagram. Okay, so I'm going to label this diagram and you should have been able to identify these regions here. So this is the liver. Here we have the stomach. Here, behind the stomach, now it's easy to miss sometimes, but just behind the stomach, we have the pancreas. We have the pancreas. Then we have the large intestine. And then we have the small intestine. So we have the large intestine and we have the small intestine. Just underneath the liver, we have this green section here, which we say is the gallbladder. Now, there is a tube that connects the stomach to the small intestine. Now, this is called the duodenum. And I think we'll leave it there for now. So there are other aspects here because there is the green duct between the stomach and the pancreas here, which you can see. This part we say is a bile duct, and what we'll do is we'll just leave that for now, but I want you to focus on the labels that we've put onto this organ system, and just be aware of the names and the locations. We are going to go in detail for each specific label that we've actually put on this diagram. But for now, I want you to be familiar, so maybe pause the video and take a look at the various locations of these organs in this system here. And this is the digestive system. So you're looking at the digestive system, you're looking at various organs and their corresponding locations. All of these organs working together correspond to or make up the digestive system. Okay, a quick summary exercise. I want you to put on your piece of paper these following words with the arrows, but I want you to fill in the blanks that are here. So on your piece of paper, you are going to have a series of words with arrows flowing on from each other, but I want you to fill in the missing words on your paper. So I'll give you just about 30 seconds. It shouldn't take that long, just on your piece of paper, to quickly put these words that are available on your piece of paper, leave the corresponding blanks, and I want you to think about what words should go preceding each arrow. Okay, so you should have cells here. This makes up a tissue. These make up tissues. Tissues make up organs, or you can say an organ. Then we have a group of organs making up an organ system, or organ systems. And then we have many systems making up an organism. i.e. a complete organism, be that a rabbit, be that a human being, be that a dog or a cat, the organism itself. All right, moving on to this exam question. Here we have, it says here, the image below shows an epithelial cell from the lining of the small intestine. Now, it's giving you the direction in which food is absorbed. It's giving you a number of labels. So part A is asking, in the image above, the part of the cell labeled A contains chromosomes. What is the name of part A? So could you just put down 7A1 on your paper in your notes? Can you just put down exam questions to the side? And can you just answer 7AI? Can you just answer the question? Just jot down the answer. Okay, you should have nucleus as your answer for part A. Now, how do we know this? Because it's telling us that the image above is part of a cell labeled A, and the key word here is chromosome. Now, before we move on to the next question, the next part of this question, this is an exam question. So as you read the exam question, as I've said before, you must underline the key words of the question as you read it. You must get into that habit. So here it's got, the image below shows an epithelial cell. Okay, so you can underline the word epithelial. That tells you what type of cell. And then it tells you it's from the lining of the stomach, lining of the small intestine. So it's giving you the type of cell, it's giving you the location of the cell, and it's also telling you in which organ it is found. These are all key points of a question because it's going to become relevant in the subsequent parts of this question. Also, look at what the direction of the arrow that is being shown here. It says direction in which food is absorbed. So it's telling you that the food direction is going to be absorbed in this manner here. And so this is a key statement here. It's important that you do not just overlook it. And here they've also talked about it having a highly folded surface. So there's a clue there. The examiner is giving you a clue in terms of asking you to focus your attention at this region of the specialized cell, and also giving you a clue by using the word surface. Now, surface should ring a bell, and I'm not going to tell you straight away, but it should ring a bell in terms of a specific type of, let's say, adaptation that should be coming to mind. Next, we have the mitochondria, and this builds on our cellular structure content. So the examiner is asking us to focus our attention at the mitochondria also. All right, so let's move on to the next question. So from that diagram, we need to answer these questions here. It says here, how are most soluble food molecules absorbed into the epithelial cells of the small intestine? So it's asking us to choose from diffusion, osmosis, or respiration. I want you to pause the video and go through these 3 questions. Go back to the diagram on the video just to recap, to refresh your memory, and I want you to attempt to answer these 3 questions, these 3 exam questions. All right, okay, So if we go back, to the diagram, we can see that the direction in which food is absorbed is in this downward motion here. So we are going to have a higher concentration of food molecules or nutrients here. And slowly it's going to be absorbed in this downward motion here. So from the movement of molecules which we previously looked at, we say that, to answer this question here, we will say that it is diffusion, because the movement of substances from a high concentration to a low concentration. So when you consume food, there's going to be a higher concentration in this region here. There's going to be a high concentration of the food in this region, because it says direction which food is absorbed. So if food is being absorbed, it must be coming down towards the region which we are looking at, i.e. we've consumed it, we've swallowed it, it's come to the stomach, and now it's passing through the stomach and going towards the small intestine. So it must be coming from a higher concentration, and then it goes to the lower concentration. So because it's in a higher concentration and the movement is downwards, we say it is diffusion. Movement of substances from a high concentration to a lower concentration. All right. Moving on to the next one. It says, suggest how the highly folded cell surface helps the epithelial cell to absorb soluble food. Now, going back to the diagram. A highly folded surface increases the surface area of that region. Now, what it means by an increase in surface area, it simply means that there is more area or more region for the molecules to be absorbed through. So what we say is, it says, suggest how the highly folded cell surface helps the epithelial cell to absorb food. It's a 1-mark question. We just say it increases the surface area. Increases the surface area of the cell. It says here, name one food molecule absorbed into the epithelial cells by active transport. We say sugar. You should have sugar, or you can say glucose. The better word to use would be glucose. Okay, next question or questions. Pause the video here, and I want you to attempt to answer these questions. It's not needed to write out the question. Put the question number down and answer these questions. All right, it says here, why is it necessary to absorb food molecules by active transport? Because absorption occurs against the concentration gradient. So we are absorbing nutrients or substances against the concentration gradient. What I'm saying is that we're going from a low to high concentration. Diffusion is passive. It goes from a high to low concentration. Active transport is where we are moving substances against the concentration gradient, i.e. from a low concentration to a high concentration. Suggest why epithelial cells have mitochondria, because energy is required to move substances against the concentration gradient. You need energy to move the substances across the concentration gradient. Now, this energy comes from respiration. So you need to state that you need the energy because you are moving substances against the concentration gradient, and this energy comes from respiration. So you need to be aware that you require energy, and energy is said to be coming from the powerhouse of the cell, which is a mitochondria, and mitochondria work due to respiration. It says here some plants also carry out active transport. Give one substance that plants absorb by active transport. You can say ions or mineral ions. Mineral ions is an answer you can give. It's a 1 mark answer there. Remember, do not say water. Water is by osmosis, and you will not get the mark if you put water down. Some students do put water down because they see the word plants here. But remember, the key words here are active transport, going against the concentration gradient. Osmosis is passive. It does not require energy. Here we're talking about active transport, so this would be mineral ions. There's a lower concentration of mineral ions in the soil, and so the roots, the plants, have to actually absorb against the concentration gradient to get the low concentration of mineral ions which are in the soil to get it into the plant. Okay, now, next question. I want you to pause the video here, and I want you to put down labels A to F, and I want you to give me a name for each letter. All right, you should have nucleus, you should have cell membrane, you should have cytoplasm, and this one is going to be the cell wall, and here you should have vacuole. Now, you may have made a mistake here and here. Some of you may have confused the larger circle for being the nucleus, but remember, this is a yeast cell. This is not an animal cell. You have a double layer, which indicates that it is not an animal cell, because animal cells do not have a cell wall. So when you see something like this, you would take this as being a vacuole, and you would take the smaller region to be the nucleus here. Another way in which you could also make sure that you don't make the error of mislabeling it is to understand that the nucleus is always grayed out because it has the DNA, has the genetic material. Vacuole are generally, it appears to be on diagrams as the empty space. Okay, so make a note of these labels and correct it on your paper if there was a mistake.